The Galactic Confederation was a place of grandeur, its courthouse a marvel of alien ingenuity. Towering pillars shimmered with holographic carvings, depicting centuries of interstellar law. Yet, amidst the majesty, one thing was painfully clear: humanity was an afterthought. The vast chamber thrummed with disdainful murmurs as Marcus Hale, a human lawyer dressed in a simple suit, walked to the center of the courtroom. He stood out not just because he was human, but because of the sheer audacity he displayed by agreeing to represent Earth in a trial that seemed destined for failure. The crowd, a collection of alien dignitaries, judges, and bureaucrats, watched with barely concealed amusement. To them, humanity was an upstart species, naive and overly reliant on rudimentary logic. How could this solitary human hope to outmaneuver centuries of legal tradition and a prosecution team with galactic experience? Kelvorin, the prosecutor from the Kralian Empire, embodied this sentiment perfectly. Towering and serpentine, his emerald scales caught the light as he smirked at the human. Does Earth truly believe one of its children can outwit the Galactic Court? Your kind can barely comprehend the laws you're accused of breaking. The accusation was severe. Humanity stood charged with illegally harvesting resources from a Kralian-claimed asteroid. If found guilty, the penalties ranged from crippling sanctions to outright annexation. It wasn't just about the asteroid. This trial was a test of whether Earth could survive in a galaxy that thrived on intimidation and exploitation. Marcus remained unshaken. He didn't respond to Kelvorin's taunts. Instead, he requested the court's permission to access the Confederation's historical legal archives. This simple request drew laughter. The archives were labyrinthine, filled with precedents so convoluted that even veteran lawyers avoided them. Do you plan to drown yourself in irrelevance, human? Kelvorin jeered. But Marcus had a plan even if no one else believed it. While the court adjourned for the day, he pored over the archives, his neural uplink humming as he absorbed centuries of legal text. The judges, imposing figures with crystalline visages, watched with bemusement. They didn't stop him. They didn't need to. To them, Marcus was already defeated, a human insect buzzing in a court designed to crush him. When proceedings resumed, Marcus addressed the court calmly. Esteemed judges, I understand humanity's position in your eyes. You see us as primitive, unworthy of the galactic stage. But today, I will demonstrate that even the smallest voice can uncover the truth. His words, measured and deliberate, silenced the murmurs. Kelvorin leaned back, clearly entertained. We await your miracle, human. Marcus's first move was unconventional. Instead of focusing on the asteroid, he began questioning the validity of the Kralian Empire's claim. He cited obscure treaties and precedents, some so old that even the judges had to reference their own records. The laughter ceased as confusion spread among the audience. This human wasn't floundering, he was building something. By the end of the session, Marcus had achieved what no one thought possible. He'd sown doubt. For the first time, the Galactic Court wasn't laughing. The courtroom was eerily quiet as Marcus stood to begin his cross-examination. Kelvorin lounged confidently, his serpentine frame coiled with smug assurance. This was routine for him, another species, another humiliation. But Marcus wasn't here to play the usual game. He approached the first witness, a Kralian mining official, with a calm, deliberate pace. State your name and position, Marcus began. The alien's voice was gruff, dismissive. Torvak Shen, Operations Overseer for the Kralian Imperial Mining Consortium, and you were responsible for the operations on asteroid Theta 72, correct? Yes, but under orders from... The official stopped himself, realizing he had already said too much. Kelvorin stiffened, but Marcus pressed on. Under orders from whom? Overseer Shan? I cannot disclose that, Torvak said, his voice faltering. Is that because disclosing it would implicate someone higher in the Kralian hierarchy? Marcus's tone was razor-sharp, his gaze unwavering. Kelvorin rose, voice booming. Objection. The human is fishing for irrelevant information. But Marcus didn't flinch. Your honors, the prosecution has accused humanity of violating interstellar law. If there is evidence that this operation was sanctioned by the Kralian Empire itself, it is not only relevant, it is pivotal. The crystalline judges conferred briefly, their multifaceted faces reflecting the tension in the room. Objection overruled. Proceed, Counselor Hale. Marcus nodded, his confidence growing. The audience shifted uncomfortably, their earlier mockery replaced by a begrudging curiosity. As the questioning continued, Marcus skillfully dismantled the prosecution's case. He used the Galactic Constitution itself, a labyrinthine document written in a dozen languages, to reveal inconsistencies in the evidence. Every claim Kelvorin made was met with a counterargument so precise that even the judges began to lean forward, their crystalline forms sparkling with interest. Next, Marcus turned his attention to the Kralian evidence logs, questioning the chain of custody. He pointed out discrepancies in timestamps, alterations in mineral composition reports, and inconsistencies in the witness accounts. Kelvorin's team scrambled to respond, but Marcus didn't let up. Let's talk about the original ownership of Theta-72, Marcus said, turning to another witness, a historian from a neutral planet. You've testified that the asteroid was designated neutral territory in Treaty 572G. Can you confirm whether this treaty was ever amended to grant ownership to the Kralian Empire? The historian hesitated, consulting his data pad. No, there is no record of such an amendment. So, the Kralian claim is based on what exactly? An unratified annexation? Marcus's voice carried across the chamber, each word a scalpel cutting through the prosecution's facade. Kelvorin rose again, this time visibly agitated. This is absurd. The human twists ancient laws to serve his primitive logic. Marcus smiled faintly. Primitive or not, your own laws demand accountability. By the session's end, the Kralian case was visibly unraveling. What had started as a foregone conclusion now seemed far less certain. The Galactic Court wasn't just listening, they were beginning to question. For the first time, humanity had made itself heard. Marcus stood firm, his presence commanding attention in a courtroom that had once dismissed him. With the prosecution visibly rattled, it was time to escalate. He called a key witness, an administrative officer from the Kralian Empire's Interstellar Trade Division. The officer, a thin, insectoid creature named Vlax, approached the stand nervously. You oversee the approval of mining permits in the Kralian Empire, correct? Marcus asked, his tone neutral but probing. Yes, Vlax replied, his mandibles clicking softly. And your records show that the asteroid in question was under neutral designation until the Kralian Empire began operations there? Vlax hesitated. That is correct. Marcus stepped closer, his voice steady. Did King Zeril personally authorize the operation on Theta-72, despite its status as neutral territory? The courtroom held its collective breath. Vlax shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Kelvorin, whose gaze was now a dangerous slit. I cannot confirm that, Vlax stammered. You cannot confirm? Or you refuse to confirm? Marcus pressed. Kelvorin leapt to his feet. This line of questioning is irrelevant. The king's involvement is outside the scope of this trial. But Marcus turned to the judges, his tone measured. Your honors, the prosecution has accused humanity of violating interstellar law. If it is proven that these charges were brought to cover up illegal actions by the Kralian Empire, it changes the entire nature of this case. I ask that the witness be compelled to answer. The judges conferred briefly before delivering their ruling. The witness will answer the question. Vlax's mandibles twitched as he spoke. Yes, King Zeril approved the operation, knowing the asteroid was neutral territory. Gasps filled the courtroom, the audience stunned by the admission. Marcus didn't give them time to recover. And were false reports submitted to the Galactic Confederation to implicate humanity? Yes, Vlax whispered, barely audible. Kelvorin's voice thundered through the chamber. This is a farce, a desperate attempt by a primitive species to deflect blame. Marcus turned to him, calm and unyielding. Desperation is submitting false evidence to incriminate an innocent party. Humanity did not breach interstellar law, your empire did. The crystalline judges leaned forward, their forms refracting the tension in the room. One of them spoke, its voice resonant and measured. "These are grave accusations, Counselor Hale. Do you have proof beyond this testimony?" Marcus nodded. "I do." He projected holographic records onto the courtroom's central display, time-stamped communications from the Kralian Empire's internal network. They revealed detailed plans to claim Theta-72 and falsify reports against humanity to avoid scrutiny. The courtroom erupted in chaos. Kelvoran shouted objections, but the evidence was irrefutable. Even the judges, typically impartial, showed flashes of outrage in their crystalline features. Marcus raised his voice above the din. "Your honors, not only has humanity been falsely accused, but the Galactic Court itself has been manipulated. If this court values truth and justice, it cannot allow such actions to go unpunished." For the first time, Kelvoran looked genuinely shaken. The tide had turned, and the Galactic Court was no longer laughing. Instead, they were listening intently to the human who had just exposed one of the galaxy's most powerful empires. The courtroom was no longer a place of ridicule. A heavy silence loomed as the judges deliberated, their crystalline forms glinting with tension. The Kralian Empire, once so assured of its dominance, now faced the weight of its own laws. Marcus stood calmly, his hands clasped behind his back, as the chief judge finally spoke. "After reviewing the evidence and testimony presented, this court finds that the Kralian Empire knowingly violated the Galactic Constitution by unlawfully claiming a neutral asteroid and submitting falsified charges against humanity. Furthermore, these actions constitute an egregious breach of interstellar law." The declaration rippled through the courtroom like a shockwave. Aliens in the audience whispered in disbelief, while others nodded, impressed by the human lawyer's audacity. Marcus allowed himself a small exhale, but he knew the battle wasn't over. "The penalties for such violations are severe," the judge continued, "and extend to the highest level of leadership involved. King Zeril must face justice." Kelvoran surged to his feet, his voice desperate. "Your honors, this is preposterous. The king is beyond reproach. The survival of our empire depends on his leadership." Marcus stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Your honors, galactic law is clear. No one, not even a king, is exempt from accountability. If this court fails to uphold its own laws, it undermines the very foundation of justice in the Confederation." The judges conferred in hushed tones, their crystalline forms pulsating with light. Finally, the chief judge turned to Marcus. "What sentence does humanity request for the Kralian Empire's actions?" Marcus straightened, his gaze unwavering. "The Galactic Constitution mandates the execution of any leader who knowingly authorizes actions that endanger the stability of the Confederation. Humanity requests that this sentence be carried out." The courtroom erupted into chaos. Gasps and shouts filled the air as Kelvoran roared in protest. "You cannot do this. This human has manipulated the court for vengeance." But Marcus remained composed, his voice cutting through the noise. "This is not vengeance. This is justice. Humanity was brought here to be humiliated, but we chose to defend ourselves with the truth. If the Kralian Empire cannot abide by the same standards, then their arrogance is their undoing." The judges silenced the room with a resonant chime. "This court finds King Zeril guilty of all charges. The sentence is death, as dictated by galactic law." The proclamation sent a wave of disbelief through the crowd. King Zeril, who had remained silent until now, rose from his seat, his towering form exuding fury. "You dare to condemn me? You insignificant creatures will regret this." But his words carried no weight. Guards escorted him out, and the execution was scheduled to proceed immediately, a symbolic gesture of the court's authority. Marcus stood silently as the proceedings concluded, his expression unreadable. In the aftermath, humanity was no longer seen as a primitive, laughable species. They had proven themselves capable of navigating the complexities of galactic law and holding even the mightiest accountable. Marcus left the courtroom without fanfare, knowing his victory was not just for Earth, but for the principle that even in a galaxy of giants, the truth could not be silenced.